November.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay. So you've been home for a couple of months. All right, that's not bad.
yeah, yeah.
And so uh, you're going to study with me for a while. What's the idea or the plan that you have in mind for studying with me? What do you think you want
Uh,
to do?
because I want to go to the James Cook University in Singapore.
Okay. So you're going to go
Yeah,
back to Singapore, but you're going to go to
yeah, yeah,
James
yeah.
Cook.
They need the IELTS test 5.5.
Oh, that's easy. You're already 5.5, aren't you?
Yeah, so because I have long time no study. I have
Uh,
holiday.
you want
Yeah,
to make sure.
so I
Okay.
need I need study something.
Okay. No problem. So
Yeah,
we basically the target here is to get the 5.5 for James Cook in IELTS. Okay, that's easy. I think for
yeah,
you because you've already done 5.5, and maybe it's just a sort of practice or refresher or understanding again and whatever changes around the test. That's fine.
yeah.
Aspire sent over a sample of writing. We'll take a look at that today, and we'll also do a full speaking interview just to see kind of where you're at generally. And then I'll make some changes for the class that will come up next and sort of adjust to that depending on what your ability is. But I'd like to catch up, if you don't mind. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened in Singapore as far as your studies and so forth before you left?
What happened? Uh, I have the O level test
Mm,
and I cannot get a good result.
okay. What was your O
Yes,
level? Do you remember?
math, addition math,
Hmm.
and accounting,
Hmm.
physics,
Hmm.
and English.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think O level English is very difficult.
Okay. Why
Yeah.
do you think it's difficult for you?
Uh, because the writing,
Mm,
you need write maybe 315 words
hmm.
or 215 words.
Hmm.
So writing, I think IELTS more easy.
Hmm.
Yeah, but the reading, reading, reading is more difficult than
Okay.
IELTS.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing as before, which is, it's where you put your effort, where you do your most practice. And so if you don't practice the writing or practice the reading, obviously you're not going to get as good as you want to be. So maybe that's some areas that we could focus on together
But
and see.
speaking, I think maybe more easy. Yeah.
Well, of course. I mean, 5.5 for James Cook in speaking, I think for you is not going to be a big issue per se, aside from maybe learning some of the new questions and so on, because you've already done
Yeah, I want
6.5.
to my speaking. You will help me get six, maybe
Yeah,
better.
I
Yeah.
think 6 or 6.5. I think if we try to practice for 6.5, that way there's that half a band between the examiner and you can still get six. And so that's a good insurance, I think. But as
Hope
far
so.
as yeah, well, it just depends on how much time you want to put into it. The writing sample looks like you only did task one. And so it looks like we're going to try to improve maybe your overall writing speed or writing ability for IELTS. And then again, still thinking about what's happening with O levels in English. So we kind of need to sort of put them together slightly because even if you get into James Cook at 5.5, they're going to be expecting you to be performing at that sort of O level um, IELTS
Oh,
5 or 6.
I can only use my IELTS test.
Okay.
I can give up my O level test.
Okay. But my
Yeah.
my my point is that beyond the test, you have to be able to study sort of at that level when you go to classes. And so we have to think about that for long range as well. So beyond test preparation, we also should be sort of preparing for being able to manage yourself in class, especially for the reading and the writing and so on. And I think if we put more focus on those skills you're having difficulty with, then it'll probably be better in the long term, aside from just kind of, just talking and sort of shooting the breeze. try to be very specific about what it is that you're going to do for this. So we'll take a look at the writing here in just a moment. Um, how many hours do you think you'll study per week for this? You're going to be with me for 4 hours, but for homework or anything else, how much time are you going to put in?
What's the meaning?
Well, you're going to study with me for 4 hours a week, one-on-one, right?
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah, yeah.
curious what else you're doing, like what's your time outside of class, so I can have an idea of like, how much homework to give you or how little homework to give you. Are you taking other classes? Are you, working? Are you doing something? I'm trying to understand your schedule
Oh,
now.
I have uh speaking, listening, reading, walking, writing. I have the class. Every part I have class.
Okay. And so who are you teaching or learning with?
Mm, listening, maybe Kelly will
Okay.
give me a teacher, but reading and writing, I have the other classes.
Okay. A,
Yeah,
foreign teacher or Chinese teacher?
Chinese teacher. Because
Okay.
I think reading and writing and listening, Chinese teacher may be better because
Sure. It's
yeah,
it's it's helpful. It's helpful because they
yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
explain to you in Chinese. But the only issue is that oftentimes they're going to be teaching you English in Chinese, and so sometimes there can be some difficulty in that area. So if
yeah.
that's the case, we'll still just focus mostly on speaking and then just kind of keeping up with your writing and giving you some suggestions. So that way I won't give you too much homework that way until I see what your performance is, based on the exam. And so if you're still having difficulty in writing and so forth, then I'll make some suggestions. So that's probably why they sent me the writing today, is to take a look at it and see what's going on. Okay.
Mm.
So let's take a look here. What she sent over. Okay. How can we do this one? All right. According to your mother, she wants to sprint for 2 months. I guess that means to be intensive in the course, then take IELTS in Singapore. So we're going to do a mock test. Which skills improve? Please spare half an hour for speaking. Okay, no problem. We got all that. That's easy to do. All right.
IELTS,
Hmm.
the result always how long?
The IELTS result, how long? What do you mean?
How long I can get my IELTS test, the number?
Oh, you mean the score or how long it
Yeah,
takes you?
score.
Let's go through the sample and go through the test, and then let's make a determination after that. Okay. Your mom says 2 months. I mean, for 5.5, I think it should go faster because you've already done 5.5. And so this is more of a review or refresh course for you. And so it really depends on your ability or what your performance is. So um, let's take a look and see what you've done, and then we'll make a decision. Okay. All right. So they gave you this one here. Oh, okay. Survey Australian cities habits. Okay. We've had this before. So basically, we've got a horizontal graph
Uh,
here.
I think
Hmm?
you only teach me the speaking maybe better.
Well, I understand, but this
Yeah.
is this is this is part of your speaking is what you're doing with the writing, and also
Oh,
because Kelly asked me to look at your writing.
okay.
Um, yeah, and so I just want to have a discussion with you about it. We're going to talk about it. We're not going to actually do the writing. Owning a home. This is also a difficult one, so this is a discussion. Okay, so oh, your handwriting is improved. Look at that. Looks pretty good. You're much neater than you used to be. That's pretty good. All right. So, William, why don't you read this for me aloud, and we'll work on pronunciation, and then also same time take a look at the score. Okay.
The table shows the results of the survey about people's coffee and tea buying and drinking habits in 5 Australian cities. From this picture, we can know that most people like went to cafe for coffee or tea. I think they very enjoyed staying in cafe, working or hang out with their friends. In Sydney, 44% people like buy fresh coffee. Maybe they have more free time. But the other 46% people like buy instant coffee. In Melbourne, uh, it was 43% person like buy fresh coffee. The other 48% like instant coffee. In Melbourne, lots of people like go to cafe for coffee or tea. It was 63% people like went to cafe in last 4 weeks. It was the most percentage in these five cities.
Okay, thank you. Let me do some annotation here. Just a moment. Find my annotation tool. It's been a while since I've used this one. Okay. So for me, there's a couple of small things here. It's somewhere around 5 or 5.5 for task one. The problem is that if they give you an hour and you only do task one and not task one, task two, then this would only be 40% of 5.5. So if you only do one essay in the hour, then it's going to cut your score in half. So even if this is 5.5 as it is without the task two for the test, and this would actually come out to be about a 2.2 or basically a 2, right? Because you only have one essay, not the two essays. Um,
Oh,
and so when it comes to the grammar issues here, it looks like some of the same difficulty you've had in the past dealing with the prepositional phrase and some pronoun usage. Otherwise, the structure, meets most of the criteria. You have an overview, you have some coherence, and you have some fluency, but it's going to be the small grammar issues that are going to keep the score down here. Probably one of the things that I like in this that we can fix very quickly. Let's see if I can do this somehow. Let me stop share. Oh, here we go. Annotation. Okay. One of the things that you're doing with your reference and pronoun here is you're saying things like 43% people. And so that means if I have a person, right? Basically what you're telling me is that it's only for 43% of the person, right?
yeah.
And so basically what that means is you're saying half of the person. You're not really saying 40% of the people. And so that's why we need this prepositional phrase
Oh,
of 43% of people, right?
oh,
So
okay.
right now you can see maybe 25% of my body, right? Okay, you can't see all of me. Okay, so there's sort of this part of English that causes difficulty for the Chinese speaker is this preposition because we don't use it in Putonghua or Guangdonghua, this idea of, as, it, these kind of difficulties that we have. So we're going to have to focus on these prepositional phrases so it's not half a person, but a group of people is what you're really saying, right? 40% of or 43% of the people are having difficulty in this area, or this is what their habits are. So that's the thing that sort of stands out the most for grammar is the prepositional phrases. Then the other part that I think you're having difficulty with in this small sample is again pronoun referencing. And so I think you're having some difficulty with fixing up the idea of what pronoun to use. And basically that's because of Chinese using ta for he, she, it, they, what. There's only one word in Chinese, but in English, we have 4 or 5 words that we use for this pronoun referencing. So there's two key areas in this paper that we would probably have to fix if we want to get 6 or 6.5, and that those would be the issue. Okay. So that's good.
Okay.
That means that we can sort of only focus on that in a short time and not worry about the other structure and so forth. So for review, that's actually a pretty good thing. So I'm happy about that because that's only two small issues. Okay, good. Let's see here. How can we switch over? Turn that there. There we go. Okay. You want to finish for me, please? Wait.
In how to read these cities?
That Yeah, that is Brisbane or Brisbane, but
Brisbane,
it's yeah, Brisbane,
Brisbane.
Australia. Yeah.
In Brisbane, people are not like buy buy fresh coffee because it was only 34% of people bought fresh coffee in last 4 weeks. In Brisbane, people also like buy instant coffee and go to the cafe. It was 53% person bought instant coffee in last 4 weeks and 56% of person went to cafe in how to
Adelaide.
read
Adelaide.
Adelaide. The most people like buy, buy instant coffee in
Hobart.
Hobart. 38% person like buy fresh coffee. 54% like buy instant coffee. In my opinion,
You want to know
in my
if you're
opinion,
in class? Are you in class?
like buy instant coffee people more than buy fresh people uh
Fresh
the
coffee.
fresh coffee. The reason is they cannot have enough time.
Okay. So again, you can see it's a similar problem with the prepositional phrases here. In Brisbane, the people are not like but fresh coffee, right? You picked that up as soon as you saw it, right? And so basically what you're saying here is that some people don't like fresh coffee because it was only 30%, 34% people. So that sentence makes it sound like the coffee is made of people and not of coffee. That means, oh, in this coffee we have 34% of people. We cut them up and we grind them up and we put them in the coffee, right? So if we don't have a prepositional phrase here, it changes the meaning of the idea. And so only 34% of people, right? And so that's part of the problem here. Notice that when you're reading, you put that in here as you were speaking, and 56% again of person, but you have to have an agreement here of people, right? Same thing with Brisbane. People also like buying instant coffee and go to the cafe. And so you have this correct, the cafe, but down here you said went to cafe, you see? And so
Uh,
these two have to agree. It either has to be go to cafes, plural, or the cafe. It's either one or many in this case. So
okay.
there's some subject agreement issues in here. Most people like but instant coffee. And so there's some difficulty in this conjunction here, right? So most people
Yeah.
like it or like instant
Like
coffee instead, right? So there's some issues here again with the fluency related to the prepositional phrases, which again is good because I can just give you the worksheet to give you the practice to improve that. So
wait a moment. I want
okay,
to go to toilet.
okay, help yourself.
Little stomachache.
That's okay. Let's see. Let's pause the recording. There we go. Okay, so the gist of this is that we've got some structure issues related to grammar, and so that'll be the big part of the focus for the writing in task one, and we can also do some samples of this as well. So that'll be useful for us. Let's see if she said anything else. Okay, that's it. All right. So how come you didn't write the second essay? Not enough time, or You just didn't do it. What happened?
What?
So she said you only gave us one essay. So I'm just curious why you only did the one and not both of them.
Because the test part two, I have a little cannot understand and
Okay.
I
Okay.
forget how to
That's
write it.
okay. May Wen
Yeah,
T. That's not a problem. There's a lot of things I don't remember in Chinese anymore because I don't use it.
yeah,
Because I
yeah.
haven't had any students since I started my other job. But so we can take a look at this, and there's a couple different ways to deal with it. So let's talk about this. So let me open up the annotation again. Annotation, there we go. And graphic. Okay. So let me have you read this to me for me, please.
In some countries, owning a home rather than
Rent,
renting
yeah, renting. Okay.
renting one is very important for people.
Mhm.
Why might this be the case? Do you think this is a positive or negative situation?
Okay. And so if you remember from the past, we call this part the prompt, right? Which is basically the topic. Okay. Then we also have the directive, like what are we supposed to do with this topic? In this case, this is a two-part. And that means that we have to provide essentially two answers here, right? And so that makes this a bit more complicated because it's not just taking one position, I agree or disagree. In some ways, this is more like causes and effects or reasons and results. So when you end up doing your essay here, obviously you're going to have introduction for the prompt, and then you're going to have one section that's dealing with the reasons why you think it's happening, and then you're going to have a section here dealing with your opinion, whether or not it's a positive or negative solution. And the truth is, it could actually be a little bit of both, right? And so you might have four sections here. And so for me, it's always important to break it down into pieces to make it an objective, because that way it's a lot easier. Okay. And so if we start thinking it in pieces, then we only have to sort of deal with one piece at a time. And this last piece, like I said, it can be one or two depending on your opinion in this case. And that's okay. We don't have to really think too deeply about this in the beginning, because all we're going to do is we're going to um, paraphrase this language here, and we're going to use this language here to set up these other pieces. Ming Bai Ma?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I wanted to rephrase this idea in some countries, how could I say that differently in English? So you might just change it to in many
Country.
countries. Yeah. Let's just make a small change. Okay. Owning a home rather than renting a home is very important for people, right? And so you could do something like in many countries when oops, ignore, when it comes to, what do we want to say, homes or households, when it comes to living situations, maybe, when it comes to living in a home, some people, instead of rather, maybe prefer renting. Some people prefer renting, but others think what? That owning a home or owning their home in this case is important, or in this case, we'll say vital. All right. And so all we've done here is we've just changed the language from the first piece so that we can use it, right? You try for me. Try to rephrase in some countries, owning a home rather than renting one is very important for people. You can make some notes, you can write it down, just take a minute or so and try to come up with a new statement just for the first part, okay?
Mm.
You do that and I'll grab the sample. So you try to make it in your own words. So you just do what I did, right? It's basically rephrase the prompt.
Mm.
Do you have something to write it down with?
Part one.
Just the first part. All we're doing is working right here in this prompt only. Just this one sentence I want you to rephrase for me, just to show me that you understand that's what we're doing.
Nowadays,
Shema.
many country. Mm. Many countries owning a home rather than
We have to change it a little bit, right? Because we can't just copy it. We have to change it by about, I'd say about 60%.
okay, wait.
Yeah, no problem. That's why I said it might help to write it down.
Owning home is more important than renting one for people.
Okay, owning a home is more important than renting one, or let's do some people. Okay. All right, that's good. That's it. That's all you have to do for that one. All right. And so that becomes useful to us. All right. And so hopefully in the recording, when you go back and look at this, you can do the notes. All right. So now let's examine the 2 points here. And so now that we've taken care of that one, we want to do the next part here. And then again, we're just building the introduction. We don't have anything put together yet. Let's go on to the next one. Why might this be the case? And so how would you do that one? Well, this one we wouldn't rephrase. We might just offer what. And so what they're looking for here is basically the reason, the how, right? In the sense for this way Shema, like, how is this happening? Why is it happening? What's the idea? And the problem is we don't really know. We don't have enough information or details. So this is generalized knowledge. This is basically based on your idea. As long as the language you use is correct, then your idea it doesn't have to be exact to reality, right? And this might be the case for many reasons. And so, in your opinion, Weishima, why do you think that owning a home is more important than renting one for some people?
Mm, in my opinion, owning home, if you have your own house, you can do anything in your house.
Okay. I think a lot of students like to say that. They say, well, if you own your own house, you can do anything in your house. And if you tell me anything in IELTS, then I can say, oh, anything, like you can murder somebody in your house. You can, um, rape somebody in your house. You can do drugs in your house, right? I always go to the extreme example, right? To shock your mind to say, well, it's not so much doing anything in your house, but you can do what you want to do, right? You have more freedom. You have more probably security. Maybe you have more confidence about your environment and so forth. And so in this case, why it might be the case, might be say something like, well, for some people, owning a home is very important for their long-term security, for their long-term freedom, because owning a home, gives you a certain status or certain value, right? And so there can be many different reasons, but it's just the language that we use to make it sort of specific or exact in this case. And don't worry, we'll take a look at some samples here. All right. We're just kind of thinking about the idea right now. So if your opinion is saying that you think this is why it's happening, so in your opinion, is this going to be a positive or negative situation?
Positive and negative.
So you're gonna think you think it's both. There's
Yeah.
positive and negative. Okay. And so that means you're gonna have two pieces for this when you end up doing it, right? So let's just focus on the first part. All right. And so you're gonna do positive and negative. And so you could say something along the lines like, um, while I agree that this is important, I think it has positive and negative results, or it's a positive and negative situation, right? And so then you'd have to address sort of which one is positive and then which one is negative. Okay. So give me some positive reasons why it's important to own a house. And we've already kind of said it's important because of our freedom, it's important because of our security. And so, what are the positive features of that aspect? The positive features of feeling secure in your home as an investment or as a way to protect your family. Why is that a positive thing?
Positive things. Uh, uh, lot of young people, they have lots of work in all day. When they uh, finish their work, I think they want to go back their house and have a rest, take shower, and
Yeah, but you can do that if you're renting a house. So why is it more important if you own it? Because I rent my
the
house, I can
owning
still, yeah. So there's a difference between renting and owning, right? So that's really what we're trying to say is what's the positive of that owning versus the renting. And so the example that you're giving me is not strong enough.
owning home, you can de decorate your own house.
Okay. So why would that be important to decorate your own house?
Uh, make 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 your home, and you will make your home beautiful, and you will happy.
Hmm. Well, who gets happy? You or the home? So
Me,
again,
me
yeah. So
person.
you make yourself happy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's an important part of the grammar in this case. Okay. So we have a couple of reasons that you think it's a positive thing. Again, addressing the fact that it's an investment, right? If normally if you buy a home, we expect the value to increase. So that way later when you sell it, you can sell it at a profit or it appreciates in value. Unlike when you buy a car, which is great. We love cars, but the more you have a car, the longer you drive it, the sort of less value it has unless it's a very expensive car to begin with or a classic car, right? And so
Yeah.
then the value maintains itself. But typically, when you live in a home for a long time, the value increases because of the location, but maybe not so much of the house itself. It gets old or whatever else. So the other positive of this is that having your own home allows you to decorate it, especially in Chinese culture. People really want to make the house, feel like it's their own, mostly because they live not in a single house, they live in apartment buildings, right? And so they all look the same. And so there's some freedom or some benefit into making it your own in this case. Okay, I can accept all of that. That's not a problem. So why do you think it's a negative situation to own your own home?
Mm, negative. Nowadays the home is very expensive.
Hmm.
Uh, if you don't have enough money, I think renting one for some people may be better than you.
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
more cheap.
Okay. So it could be negative because of the expense, right? It's expensive. It's
Yeah.
expensive to come up with the down payment, maybe the mortgage. And so if you're just starting out, it may be difficult to own your own home until you have some more savings or whatever else to invest in your home. And so think about owning your home as an investment, right? You studied some accounting, you studied some statistics. We know that essentially if we have some sort of assets, we have some sort of money somewhere, and we want that money to grow, we will put the money in either a business or real estate, in this case, a home, or maybe into stocks or bonds. We tend to think that owning a home is a good investment because of the appreciation of value, because it's a secure asset. Different if you go and invest your money, let's say, like in a business that may fail sometime soon and you lose all your money. The same thing if you buy a bunch of stocks or bonds or invest in the stock market. You may lose your money if there's some problem with the economy or something like that. So we always think owning the home is a better investment. Now in China, it's a little bit different because technically you sort of lease the home, from the developer or whatever else, and so you don't really own it outright. But in other countries, it's possible to own your house completely. You just have to pay the taxes on it and so forth. Okay. So here's my suggestion for you, William, in this case, because it's positive and negative in reality. That makes sense that most people would talk about both of these. But for 5.5 in IELTS, I would say just pick one because it would be shorter and it would be faster. And it's okay to have a single position, whether you agree more that it is a positive or more that it is negative, if you only pick one. And that way you only have to focus on one idea instead of both of them at the same time. So that way you don't have to do two pieces, you only have to do one piece. And so it makes it easier for 5.5. So for you, is it easier to talk about this in the positive or is it easier to talk about it in the negative? So you should pick one.
Mm, positive.
I think most people would agree that there's probably more positive reasons to own a house than a negative reason. There's only some specific situations when it can be negative because of the economy, because of interest rates, those kind of things. And so I would just say directly, I think this is a positive position. I would say this is a positive situation. Everyone should try to own their own home. So that way you only have to focus on the positives. And then it makes it easy because you only really need sort of three reasons, right?
Mm,
And one, we've talked about the idea of investment as a security. And if you look at it from the investment standpoint, then it's easy to come up with, three reasons why it's a positive investment. If you're talking about you want to mix it up and say, okay, one part it's about an investment. The next part is maybe something like the freedom or the security or the comfort. It's the personal feeling, right? Not the financial feeling. So there could be a personal positivity. And the third positivity, it also could be good for everyone else. It could be good for the economy, right? And so that's the other benefit. If everyone is owning a home, then that means that it's driving the economy for the country, for the nation, for the global economy in this case. Whenever we have people buying houses, because it requires a lot of resources, it creates jobs. You have to buy the decorations, and so there's a lot of expense that's going into that investment. And so it could be good for the economy. So there's three positives here. One positive, of course, is that, it's related to money. It's a good investment. The other positive here is it's good for your person. It's good for your feeling because you have your own home, you have security. And the third reason is it can be very good for the economy. So there can be many different positive reasons, and that's okay. For us, our job is to tell the examiner what we think they are. And so it doesn't matter really if they're right or wrong. It's just the language that we use to describe it. Okay. All
Okay.
right. All right. Good. Okay. So we've been going for about an hour. And so I'm going to take a break. But what I will do here is put up the essay. You can take a look at that if you want. And this is actually a pretty good version. And so I'll leave that here. I'll cover up this part here. We don't need that. Okay. Let's see. It's 23 past. Let's take about 7 minutes here, and then we'll start again. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back. Okay. Let's take a look at the sample here. This is supposed to be 7.5. I'm not exactly sure, but it's definitely better than your sample, and so that's an improvement, and that's good because if we look at the target sample compared to your sample, and then we can sort of make some connection to what some of the issues are. So we've highlighted some of the language here that's important as well. So let me have you read this again, and then what I want you to do is get my annotation up here. Just a moment. Recording, share annotation. There we go. That's it. Okay. So let me have you read, but I want you to start with the prompt and the directive first again, and then we'll go into the sections. Okay. So read the
Okay.
green.
In some countries, owning a home rather than renting one is very important for people. Why
Mhm.
might this be the case? Do you do you think this a positive or negative situation?
Okay, good. All right. So now here's how they did their paraphrase. Remember, which we talked about this first part here. We just want to sort of rephrase this part, right? So read what they did.
Why people think that ownership of a home is
Crucial.
crucial in some countries. In this essay, I believe that the disadvantages of owning a home outweigh its advantages.
Okay. So notice that they built in a thesis statement here, which they're telling me or the examiner in this essay, like this is what I'm going to do. Okay. And that's important for us because it gives us direction, gives you direction as what you're going to do. And so in this essay, what are we going to do? Well, we also have the position here, right? I believe, right? In this case, the belief is they think it's a disadvantage. And so did they choose one or two position? Because here they're asking for two, right?
Yeah,
So did they choose two or one?
two,
They did. I believe that the disadvantages of owning a house outweigh its advantages. Is that two position or one position?
one position.
Yeah. And in this case, which position is it? In this case, is
Mm,
it the positive position or the negative position?
Negative position.
Hmm. Advantages of owning a house outweigh disadvantages, right? And so they've only chose the negative. So that's my point, is you only have to pick one, okay? Because it makes the essay easier to do. If you pick two, that means a longer essay. It also means some confusion between your idea. Is it positive? Is it negative? And so this way you're just focusing on one idea and developing it more completely or thoroughly. All right. And so
Mm.
that's my suggestion. I agree with the idea here in this case. Okay. All right. Switch this up. Okay. So let's get into the next part here. So this is a relatively small essay in the sense that we've got one block, two block, three blocks. So we got four blocks. And the thing to note here is in IELTS, we can have a one sentence conclusion. So that's our goal. Read the first part here. There are several.
There are several reasons why people think that ownership of a home is crucial. The main reason is
Psychological
psychological tab-
stability.
stability
Hmm.
from owning a home. When people have their own houses, they do not have to pay for rent every month. This would make people comfortable even when they lose their jobs. Furthermore, people who own a home do not necessarily a lease contract with landlords. In many cases, the contact between landlords and
Tenants.
tenants not only gives a lot of suggest to tenants, but make them an
Anxious.
anxious because many landlords decide whether they prolong the contract according to only their profits. Thus, tenants can be
Eve.
evicted
Mm.
despite they are eager to extend their contact with the landlord.
Okay. And so the word is contract. It's highlighted here many times. So there's a few things with this model that concern me. In this case, is one is the repetition of contract here is pretty high. We got it used four times. Home, it's kind of the subject, so that's allowable. The other thing is using crucial repeatedly. And so we've got to be careful if we use some very specific words that we don't repeat them because they kind of stand out, right? And so what do you think would be another word for crucial? Ownership of a home is crucial. Ownership of a home is crucial. And so basically what I'm trying to say is another way of saying how it's important, right? In my sample, I said vital. Can you think of another idea for important, crucial, or vital?
Mm, crucial,
So we have crucial, we have important, we have vital. Do you have one other word, do you think?
important,
Well, important is here. Crucial is here. How about another one from your vocabulary?
I don't know.
Okay. If you had to translate crucial from Chinese to English, so try that and see if it gives you another idea. So look up the word crucial in Chinese.
Crucial,
Hmm.
The most important.
Okay. And so what would be another way to say the most important thing? Okay, no problem. Let's take a look here. Let's see, clear. Actually, I don't want to clear my annotations. Give me just a moment here. Can I do that? Oh, we can save here. I'll save. Okay, now we can clear. So if we look up synonyms for crucial, right, we have a big list here as an adjective, don't we? And so we have different aspects of other words in English that have this sort of the same meaning in this case. All right.
Mm.
So let's take a look at the language here. So this will be part of the homework here I'll give you is this vocabulary. All right. So we have the word crucial, which we know is vital or important. And so we have other different ways. So let's read through this. Okay. So let's try the first one here. Just repeat. Pivotal.
Pivotal.
Okay. Critical.
Critical.
Key.
Key.
Climacteric. That's one I don't know.
Climacteric.
Yeah, I've never seen that one before. Decisive.
Decisive.
Deciding.
Deciding.
Determining.
Determining.
Settling.
Settling.
Testing.
Testing.
Trying.
Trying.
Searching.
Searching.
Major.
Major.
Significant.
Significant.
Influential.
Influential.
Okay, so this is why English isn't really a perfect language and causes a lot of difficulty because we have one idea with many words, right? And so the only issue for us in IELTS is we do have to have some of the different ways to say this so we don't repeat ourselves in the description, or in this case of the adjective, right? And so a couple of these you've probably heard before, or maybe you know about these. And so instead of just saying it's crucial to own a home, right? We can change this around a little bit, and we can change the model by saying, it is critical to own your home. Could I change this to any other ones? It's pivotal. I'd have to change it a little bit. It's decisive, determining, significant. I like that one. It is significant to own your own home. So notice the only thing that's changing here is sort of the key piece here for the adjective, right? And so it's a matter of word formation, of picking the one that fits the best. And this has a little bit to do with collocation as well, right? Okay, so I'm going to save that one as well, and I'll give that to you later. All right, good job. Okay, let's clear our annotations. Okay, let's go on to the second part here. And then I've got another comment about this that I want to make is notice I said to you, we can make it a single position, but look at the size here. In this particular part, they gave us most of the languages for the advantage, right? And so my concern is that there's too much of a balance between the positive and the negative, especially if your idea is, I believe that the disadvantage of owning a house outweigh the advantages, and you agreed with me that this is a negative situation. But in this case, they did 50% positive and only 50% negative. Okay. And so this would be all right if it was a discursive essay, a discussion, but because this is reason and result, or cause and effect, I would probably prefer this ratio to be something less, like maybe only 25% of the counter argument, okay? And then this part here, maybe 75%. And the easy way to guarantee this is that if we look at the negative situation, for me, I would recommend, again, probably three ideas. And if this is going to be all about the negative, then in this case, if we're going to counter argue or counterpoint the positive, then maybe we should only have maybe one idea. Okay.
Mm.
And so the format here for me is too much positive and not enough negative. And so I would change this if this is my writing or my essay, because I want this to be persuasive. I want it to be convincing. I want to show that this part here is that I really believe that it's a disadvantage. Okay. And so this ratio is wrong. So this part here should be much bigger. Okay. Ming Bai Ma?
Mm.
Okay. So in this case, let's do the negative aspect and see what we can do to improve it. So I'm going to have you read here in spite.
In spite of the advantage of proof, I think that the advantages of owning a home are bigger than its advantages. First of all, purchase,
Purchasing.
purchase, purchasing a house is a huge economic pressure on people because the middle class in people is not able to afford to buy a house. In this case, mortal
Mortgage.
mortgage is
Inevitable.
in, inevitable. As a result, they have to repay their loan for several decades when but a house in this presents a lot of interest would
Accrue.
accrue over the period, which leads to more pressure on people who borrow money for banks. Secondly, additional expenses happen to the people who purchase a house. For example, people who own their houses have to pay several kinds of taxes and insurance
Mm-hmm.
insurance fees.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, as these are interesting,
Increasing
increasing gradually,
gradually. Okay.
gradually, the house owner feels
Onerous.
onerous when they paid for those.
Okay. So it's interesting that in some ways they're trying to use very sort of complicated vocabulary, like this idea of feeling onerous, right? Which is, it's a good word, but it's not common usage. The other issue for me is like they have some mistakes here, like this idea, the middle class in people. Well, it should be the middle class of people or middle class for people or just the middle class. It would be the better way to do it. And so there's some small errors here in the grammar and so forth. And that's why this is, you know, it says 7.5. For me, I would probably be concerned about task completion here. And so this probably would be more like 6.5 or 7 for me. I don't think I would give it a 7.5 just because it has the word onerous. Let me ask you another question. Notice that we have a lot of words here in green. And so what's sort of the function or the purpose? Why are these highlighted? Like, what are these doing in our essay? Do you remember what this is called? So why do we use these words in this essay? Do you remember what this is called in IELTS?
Mm.
Okay, so we'll take a look at the scoring of IELTS later. And so basically we could say that these are cohesive items or discourse markers. Okay, so this is something that they measure in your writing. So we have to use this language. Okay, and so cohesive and discourse markers, basically cohesive means that it allows our ideas to sort of fit together, to stick together. Same thing with discourse markers. It also shows us sort of where we're at in our journey, in our story, in our essay. Basically, it gives us direction. And so think about some of the language here, like furthermore, for example, secondly, as a result, right? And so notice they all have a comma after them. So we're starting these sentences. So that means it's introducing an idea or connecting an idea to the other part. And so this is important language to master. We have to be able to do this pretty easily if you want to get 6 or 6.5, is we're going to have to really develop this aspect of it. Okay. Okay, going back to my style comment here of making this smaller, making this bigger, can you think of any other disadvantages of owning a home that are not here? Basically, their argument is that you're still paying for the mortgage in this case, and then you have to take a loan, so it's sort of the same idea. The main difference, I would say, is that uh, you get to own your home at the end of the loan, right? It's your investment in this case. But there could be some disadvantages having to deal with not only taxes and insurance, but maybe with the upkeep, right? If you have your home for a long time, you're going to have to decorate it. You're going to have to fix things. There's going to be damage, those kind of things. The other issue might be, let's say you buy your home in a nice neighborhood today, but for some reason, over the period of you living there, the quality of the neighborhood becomes dangerous or becomes run down or becomes, like a ghetto. And so the value of your investment or the value of your home is going to decrease because even though you might be very nice on the inside, if the environment around you has changed, then you don't have any control over that. And so that could be a disadvantage, is that you put your investment in this neighborhood, but then the neighborhood turns out to be terrible later on. And so you lose some value in your investment. So we could include another bigger idea here for the disadvantage. And I would, if I was doing this, I would really be working on this part. If it says in this essay, I believe the disadvantages are, then I really want my essay to be about disadvantages. In this case, it's 50-50. It's Mao Mao Hoo Hoo. I don't like it that way. I want this to be more about disadvantages. Ming Bai Ma?
Mm.
He says. It could be yes or no. So I'm not sure. Okay, let's do the conclusion.
In conclusion, I think that people should not buy a house notwithstanding the benefit of brief.
Okay, above. And so again, this could be either a typo or it could be their language. And so in conclusion, I think people should not buy a house notwithstanding the benefit above. And so they're trying to sort of save their little part of the essay, and it happens. People do that sometimes. And so basically what they're trying to do here is trying to include the reason why they changed sort of their positioning here to this idea. Okay. And so the benefit above is this part. And so they're saying notwithstanding. And so it doesn't make a very cohesive argument or cohesive paper for the reason and the result here because it's too balanced. Okay. And so it would be better to just to say this is mostly all disadvantage and change the language to all negative and just say in conclusion, I think people should not buy a house for the benefits above or for the reason above. So that way it's much more cohesive. Okay. So there's some challenges here that we have to deal with. All right. Okay, let's clear all of that out. And actually, I think we can get out of this part as well. Questions, comments about this model? Anything
Pardon?
you want to, questions or comments about this model? Is there anything you want to say about this before we
Mm,
stop?
No.
Okay, so then we will stop it. All right. So again, my suggestion to you is that you review the recording as part of your homework so you can go back over the details because you can start and stop when I'm talking or when you're looking at something to get the idea. If you don't review the lesson that we're recording, it's going to cause you some difficulty in the long run. And so that's my recommendation is that between now and the next class is you go back and rewatch this and listen so you can improve your listening. You can also improve your language because we're pointing out the language from the lesson. And you can watch a little bit, 5 minutes stop, make some notes, process, think about what I said, then go again another 5 minutes or so. So you can break it up, make it slower for you. That's the only reason why I'm going very quickly because I want to give you a lot of content to use before the next lesson. But it only works if you watch the review. Okay. And so I'll make that very clear that I want you to do that. All right. Okay. I think what I'd like to do now is to go into the speaking test and let's see where you're at with that, if you don't mind. And so let me set this up really quick. What I'd like to do is make sure you have a piece of pen and paper to make notes for part two. All right. So let me give you about 5 minutes and we'll come back and we'll do the exam. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Dr. Isles. I'll be doing your speaking exam for you. Could you tell me your full name, please?
My full name is Huang Yuling.
All right. And what shall I call you?
You can call me William Wong.
All right, William Wong. Do you work or are you a student?
I still study, so I am a student.
All right. And what do you study now?
I study English and math and physics now.
And what do you plan to do in the future?
Well, I want to work in government in the future because my parents, they also work in government.
All right. Thank you. Let me ask you about a TV program. Excuse me. Do you often watch programs on TV or on your mobile or cell phone?
Mm, Sometimes I watching some TV, some sport program in my mobile phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I like sport.
Mm-hmm.
I usually watch the NBA or football.
So do you like watching the same kind of program all the time?
Yes.
Why?
Mm, because I usually do some sports, so uh, maybe the other program I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
only like the sport program.
Do you talk with your friends about the program you watched?
Yes, I usually talk with my friend when we watch the sports programs on sports competition. We will talk it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Let me ask you about trees. And so, what kind of trees do people usually plant in China?
Well, maybe some apple trees. People will plant it.
Mm. Have you ever planted a tree?
No, I don't like some. I I don't know how to plant it, and I living in 20 floors, so planting some trees is not convenient for me.
Hmm. And so, what kind of tree would you plant if you could? If you could plant a tree, which one would you plant?
Maybe I will plant some lychees trees because I like this fruit.
Mm. So, do you think you would like to plant trees?
Maybe no, because I know planting some trees is very difficult and tired.
Mm.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about taking a rest. And so, how often do you take a rest?
Well, I usually take rest in Saturday and Sunday
So,
because
what?
I am a student. So in Monday to Friday, I still need to go to school to study. So I only have 2 days. I can take a rest.
So, what do you usually do when you are resting?
I usually uh, get up late and hang out with my friend or eating with my friend. I usually find some delicious food to share with my friend.
Do you take a nap when you're taking your rest?
Pardon?
Do you take a nap when you take your rest?
Mm, no. If we think that restaurant is very delicious, maybe we will usually go to that.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. In this next part, I'd like to give you a topic and I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. Before you talk, you'll have 1 minute to prepare and you can make some notes if you wish. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right. So give me just a moment to line up your topic here and I'll have you confirm that you can see the topic. Okay. Can you see the topic?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'd like you to describe a traditional product in your country and I'll give you 1 minute to prepare. All right, William, remember you have 1 to 2 minutes for this, so don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
In my country, we have lots of traditional products. Uh, in my opinion, my favorite traditional product is firework. Firework uh is a is a things to celebrate some traditional festival like New Year or like New Year's. Uh, my I first time to try firework is when I when I was 4 years old, I first time to try the firework. Uh, in first time, I very scared because he will uh blast. So I very scared. But when I tried, I think it is very beautiful. It made maybe the prouder to make the firework. And nowadays, China cannot play some firework in some cities. So I think
All
it is
right.
not
Thank you.
choose.
Thank you. Do you like any other traditional products in your country besides
Mm,
fireworks?
no.
Okay. All right. We've been talking about a traditional product in your country. I want to ask you some other questions related to this. And so let me ask you a little bit about some of the other traditional products in China. Can you think of any other things that are made in China that are traditional?
Mm, lucky money.
Okay. When you say lucky money, what do you
Uh, in New Year, the older people will give us the lucky money.
mean? I see. And so what are the traditional products that you think are important? So why are they? Why are they important?
Mm, it is a culture. I don't know why it is important.
Hmm.
Yeah, it is
Okay.
a culture.
Okay. When you say it is a culture, what do you mean by culture?
Culture is something uh something something experience so many years still so many years people still remember.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So do you think tradition is important for a country?
yeah. I think every country should have their traditional things.
Okay. Why do you think so?
Mm, because people cannot forget their country, uh, which country is their home, which person is their family.
Hmm. Okay.
Mm.
Why would it be important for children to learn about traditional products?
Because nowadays, lots of younger children they can learn the other country things. They go to the other country study, so they will forget their local things, such as my cousins. They cannot say Chinese or 广东话
Oh, really?
Cantonese.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I can stop the clock there. Thank you very much. Let's take a look at the marking rubric and let's come up with a score for this sample, if you don't mind. Okay. So let's see here. Yeah. Let me locate our marking band descriptors. There we go. And we want speaking band descriptors. There we go. Let's see, you want to be able to see this. There we go. Okay, and share screen again. All right, you remember our old friend here. Oh no, our old friend Lao Pangyo of Speaking Band Descriptors. And so definitely want to take a look at a couple different key areas here for your sample. And so let me ask you your opinion first. How do you think the sample was tonight? How do you think you did?
Mm, part two, maybe I didn't finish.
Yeah, part two, I think, had some issues, I think, really with maybe understanding the choice of traditional products and trying to support that idea of fireworks was probably difficult. And then that sort of carried through the other questions because you weren't really able to um, take that through the other questions. So that might have caused the difficulty in finishing. So it'd probably be a good idea to study the questions, the part one questions and the part two questions, and of course the part three questions, but to really focus on the monologue on part two, which is probably what I'm going to recommend is that you go back and listen to your part two and then try to redo it and prepare it for next time. And let's do the same questions next time and see if you can make some improvement with the suggestions. Okay. And so in the areas that we're concerned about when it comes to your basically your ability to have the coherence and the fluency, the biggest issue here is going slow and pausing. And so there's a lot of gaps. There's a lot of long places where you're not saying anything. And because of the limitations of the lexis of the language that you have, it makes it difficult to sort of build complete pieces. And so these two areas are influencing each other. And so, you're somewhere probably down here between a 4 and a 5, depending on the examiner, based on, your performance tonight. And a lot of this is coming from this area here, which is the lexical part, which is causing you some difficulty, like in paraphrasing and things like that. When it comes to grammar and pronunciation, it's probably also having some difficulty in the accuracy because you're missing out on some key pieces dealing with things like prepositional phrases. The same thing that we saw in the writing sample that you gave us is also causing you difficulty in your speaking. And so that means you're still missing key information. And I know it's review for you, and you've done 6 before in IELTS, and that's probably why you're taking the course again intensively before the next test, is because you've forgotten some things or still have not learned them completely. And I would say that probably the grammar issue here, based on the word formation, is probably also somewhere in this area. Pronunciation actually is not too bad. I mean, it's not a 7, but it's understandable between 6 and 5, depending on where you're at. And so for me, the sample probably would come in overall at a 5. I'd be comfortable with that. Some examiner might take you down to 4.5, but definitely it's not 5.5 and it can't be 6 the way it is today because of the issues that we're having. All right. And so those are some things that we need to sort of consider or talk about in order to prepare you for the next lesson, but also to prepare you for the next course. Okay. Um, any questions or comments about the score or these sort of key categories here?
No.
No? Well, that's terrible, William. You should have lots of questions. And so let me just review very quickly here in English. And the idea that I'm trying to say to you is, again, for me, the things that I think that sort of stand out is that, you're usually able to maintain a flow of speech, but you've got the repetition and you've got and slow speech to keep going. And that's a big issue, especially when you were getting lost in part two and also in part three, some difficulty as well. Discourse markers, there's that word again. We notice that it's also in the writing. And so this issue here of connective and discourse markers, you're going to have to study for sure. Um, Simple speech fluent, but complex communication causes fluency problems. And so there was some issues in how complex your answers were. Part of this has to do with, whether you're familiar with a topic, uh, being able to do it flexibly. And of course, whenever you tried to paraphrase, you had some difficulty. And so we noticed that also looking at the writing when we were trying to paraphrase the prompt in part one into your answer, there was some difficulty in sort of coming up with that. Remember when we looked at that word important, vital, crucial, and we had to go and look for some other words. And so that's part of that issue. That's the part of that skill set, is being able to use different language for the same idea, which is paraphrase. And so in order to get this at 6, then we're going to have to make some changes here. We're going to have to sort of look at where you're at right now and say, okay, I need to make some changes here. And one of the big changes I'm going to have to do 6 and Lexus is I'm going to have to sort of be able to paraphrase successfully. And so that's one of our goals for sure. Okay.
Okay.
And that's an important part for us. The other aspect here of your grammatical range and accuracy is having to deal with basically your sentence structure. And I think your basic sentence structures are fine, but they are limited. And so the limited range here is what's holding it down, especially for complex structures. Part of that has to do with those small pieces of grammar. When we talked about the preposition use, as far as prepositional phrases related to your discourse markers and your connectives. Until we can fix that, it's going to be hard to sort of improve this to go up a bit higher. For pronunciation, like I said, you've got some decent use of features here. Not everything is complete. You're still having some problems with some key sounds like th and d sounds. Um, some problems with a couple of the vowel structures. And so we'll have to work on pronunciation. I want to make this a very solid 6, or if possible, a very solid 7 for you. So that way it will carry the other weaker points. And so for us, I think we got to think about making this much stronger here. And of course, we've got to be stronger here if you want 5.5. And so those are the key areas for us in this case that we're going to work on over the next 2 months or so. And this is the recommendation that I'm going to make to Kelly at Aspire, so that whoever's doing the other teaching for you sort of knows what I'm looking for or knows what my plan is, so they can help you with that when you're doing the reading or doing the listening, so it fits into that. Bing Bai Ma?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Good job. All right, so there's a couple of other little things here we need to clean up before we leave, and so let's do that. Let me stop that share there really quick. And going back to what's happening with the writing score. And so that's something we need to sort of take a look at before we leave. And so let me share the screen here again. There we go. Okay, so in the writing calculator, essentially it comes down to a couple of different pieces here. And so if they give you 1 hour to do this, and so in this case, you have a task 1 and you have a task 2, and you've got to do both of them. And as I said to you, this task 1 is equal to 40% of the total writing mark, okay? And this part here is equal to 60%, okay? And so if you only do one of them, that means you're only going to get that percentage of the total score, okay? And so this is why it's important to do both pieces in the sample, because what's going to happen is that based on what you did today, I can only give you 40% of the task score. And I said to you, you're at a 5, right?
Okay.
Okay. And so because you have a 0 in task 2, that means that the 5 that you did today is going to be a 2, you see?
Oh,
And so
yeah.
it's going to almost cut it in half. And so today I can only give you a 2 in writing. Had you done the second piece, even if the second piece wasn't very good, you can see that even if you at least write something, you can change your score a little bit here. And so for us, if the target is 5.5, then we know that we need to be somewhere in the 5.5 range overall. And so if we look at 5.5s, we start to see them somewhere around here. It's 5.5. Yeah, you start to see that right along here. And so in order to do that, you'd have to do a 6.5 in task 1, and then your task 2 could be 4.5. And so, it's kind of your choice which area you want to focus on. But overall, what I'd like to see is a complete solid 6, if possible. And in order to do that, you'd have to sort of match it up in this case. And so
Yeah.
that means you got to pull a 6 in 2, and then that means you've got to pull somewhere between 5 and 7 for that. And so we're going to have to change those scores around. But today the writing's going to be at a 2. I'll say that.
5 and 5 is okay.
5 and 5 is okay, but that's only 5. But we need 5.5. And
Yeah,
remember,
5.5 is okay.
the examiner may change half plus or half minus. And so if we start targeting 6 or 6.5, then it'll be more of a guarantee that if they mark you down, at least you'll still be at 5.5, since that's what the James Cook University requires. So we'll have to work on that. So I will compile these and make these recommendations to Kelly. Do you know the name of the new assistant at Aspire?
What's the meaning?
Do you know the name of the new office person?
No.
Okay, I don't either. All I know is Kelly. And so I will make these recommendations to Kelly in this case. All right.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do in the meantime, while I'm doing your report, is I'm going to send you some questions, okay? And I want you to also study those. The main thing I really want you to do is to go back and listen to this lesson, to watch it again, is to study this between now and your next class. And then I'll send you the preparation for the other stuff. I'd also like you to finish that part 2 essay about owning a home with the ideas that we've done. But before you write that essay, I would go back and listen and review what we did so that you have the ideas to make the changes for that part 2. So that way you can complete that. And so I'll write that down for you as well, what I want you to do. Okay. Any other questions or comments before I leave?
Nope.
Okay, so I will follow up with you probably later today. And I think we're scheduled for next Tuesday. So we've got a couple of days to work on things. And you've got your other lessons as well. And so that way, when you come back on Tuesday, we'll do another speaking exam. We'll check the writing in part 2 sample that you finished and see what other comparisons we'll make. And then we'll focus on the issues that we have here, which has to deal with grammar in prepositions and also your connectives and coherence or discourse devices. And so everything that was a problem today, we will try to fix next Tuesday and keep doing that. Okay.
Okay.
All right, sir. Good to see you again.
Okay.
I'm glad you're an old fat man like me, and so it's fun. So peace out, bro.
Bye bye.
See ya.